Hello and welcome to Ladies of the PGS. I am your host, Mmmm, and of course we have with us tonight Lorena Creole. How are you tonight?
I am doing well, and so glad to be here with you and with all of you out there.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us, Lorena. And I have been speaking to you over the weekend, a good portion of last week, about the Sundance Film Festival, which sure has been making a splash in the headlines this season. And as you are aware, they have an in person Sundance Film Festival, but there's also the opportunity to get tickets and view the movies at home. And I tried as hard
Hmm.
as I could, Lorena, but I could not get tickets to this year's online event.
Ah, I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Dang.
was upset by this because there were so many interesting films coming out, and you and I have already been talking about this incredible lineup of films. We covered one of these films,
Hmm.
a documentary about Brooke Shields, which got a lot of chatter with Brooke Shields herself saying she wanted the film to bring attention to the sexualization of young girls. Now, you and I have been talking about this for a while now. And of course, Brooke Shields is just this megastar from the 70s and 80s who had such a huge impact on entertainment. But it is very interesting because it coincided with this lawsuit that Olivia Hussey and her co star from
Hmm.
Romeo and Juliet had filed,
Hmm.
literally probably days before the Sundance Film Festival started. And so it was very interesting. At some point, some reporters approached Brooke Shields and asked her, Brooke, what do you think of this lawsuit? And Deadline did cover this. They mentioned, I can't pull it up because my computer's not allowing me to, but Brooke Shields says it was a very different era in filmmaking, and many different directors took liberties, and I think that we knew that. But it's interesting was the response from Brooke Shields was not what I thought she was going to say. Obviously Brooke Shields wants attention to be brought to her film for the reasons we mentioned, but Brooke Shields says that she feels she was more protected than most because her mother was there. And
Hmm.
I was so fascinated by this, Lorena, because that was maybe not the thing that I thought I was expecting Brooke Shields to say. While it is true that she was overexposed in a way, her mother was there. And she spoke about how the directors knew her mother was there. And I think one or two directors would say her mother kind of got in the way. But it is really interesting. That's not the answer or what I thought Brooke Shields was going to say in response to this. But she was not surprised by
Hmm.
hearing that this lawsuit had been filed. And she also noted that that era, there was something about that era that was very different, where so many different directors took liberties with the actors.
Hmm.
And something, she also mentioned that they would tell the actors one thing and then tell the studio another thing. So I also don't think I'm surprised. I just was surprised to hear her talk about her mother's role in this. It is feels like such a dichotomy, having her mother there, but then at the same time the nature of her film. So it is quite unusual.
Hmm.
And perhaps she's right. Perhaps Brooke might have been in some serious danger if her mother wasn't around. Lorena, what do you think about this response that she gave, knowing how overexposed she was and knowing her strained relationship with her mother? Were you expecting her to give her mother this kind of street cred while filming and doing these films?
I don't know if it's street cred or if it's that as overexposed as I was, guess what? My mother was actually there rubber stamping it, for lack of a better term. It's just kind of shocking for me to, like, say, if, I had a daughter that age, put into a film in that type of position, that's not something that I would have been very comfortable with. So I don't know if she's just saying it matter of factly, like, this is what happened. Yes, my mother was there on the set, and this still went on. And I think she also added that she was a bit more protected than other actors her age and in her position. So I'm not shocked she said that her mother was there, because I think I'd heard something about that like years ago or so. But it just, I don't know if she was more focused on making Brooke a star and just, this is, what it is, and to basically say, hey, it could have been worse. I could have not been there at all, and you wouldn't have had an advocate, for you.
Yeah, it is so strange. And I guess we're here, she did this film, and we're kind of trying to wrap our heads around what had happened to her as an entertainer, and to kind of understand all this. And of course, the odd thing is that the one thing that we need to hear, or the one person that we could hear from her mother, is not really in this particular scenario for us to
Mhm.
understand or even reach out to and talk to her about this. But the timing of it, Lorena, certainly is quite incredible. This particular movie, as I said before, was certainly something that I think Brooke Shields has been wanting to do for a while now. She's proven herself in so many ways, entertainment wise, well, pretty much everything. And, it is pretty interesting here. I think she had made the comments on Twitter. Can I play this on here, Lorena, or?
Um, it's 2 minutes. You might get claim for it.
Okay, so I will not play it, but Lorena, you and I, this is very interesting when we're looking at entertainment and trying to figure out, where entertainment is going now. And I think that overall, when it comes to focusing on what Brooke wanted to and understanding her career, this was something I wasn't expecting. This was something that I didn't know I was going to hear. And I think that the focus on this film, Pretty Baby, really has kind of done its job when you have this discovery moment on someone's career, and this aha moment that you just didn't think you were going to hear about. And certainly, it feels very interesting to look at it from that point of view. So I have to say that Sundance is really kind of keeping us intrigued with what it's delivering in regards to film and everything that's coming
Mhm.
out. There's another film called 20 Days in Mariupol, which is about the conflict in the Ukraine, which is getting a lot of chatter, along with
Hmm.
things that we would expect, like theater camp, which is, I guess, about, when you go to these summer retreats and you want to do something in the performing arts. And I love that they did something like that. But there's one
Mhm.
other film that I wanted to mention that I kind of am intrigued by, or should I say, actor that I've suddenly become even more intrigued by, is because I recently reviewed a movie that Jonathan Majors was in, called Devotion. And it's kind of the original Top Gun in a way, if you will, if I could get some artistic license here, because the
Mhm.
film is about Korean War aviators. And, you
Hmm.
don't ever really hear about Korean War aviators. But he was in that recently. And the movie that he's getting even more buzz about is a film called Magazine Dreams. And Lorena, if you look at the picture,
Hmm.
I couldn't take my eyes off of this thing when I first saw it. You can see the headline here about it: Magazine Dreams, Jonathan Majors on transforming to play a troubled bodybuilder. And there he is. If you look on the right, Lorena, we knew we were going to see this incredible performance of him in Creed. He's shaking up Marvel too. But Lorena, look at the left side of the picture of him kind of standing there as a bodybuilder. Lorena, he certainly grabbed my attention with this photo. And it's just absolutely stunning. Certainly, a performance. It's not just a acting performance. Now he has to perform as a bodybuilder, if you will.
Mhm.
It's stunning. Look at this. A lot of people got attention and looked at this and really were drawn to this because of this incredible performance. Here it says, um, it's an edgy drama called Magazine Dreams that makes it
Mhm.
Sundance premiere. And everybody is just talking about it. He's one of the fastest rising stars in Hollywood. Certainly, it's really interesting to see his career just now, just at this moment, the snapshot of this up and coming situation for him. Certainly, he was amazing in Devotion, as well as a Black naval aviator in the
Mhm.
1950s. movies. But Lorena, he's certainly fulfilling some of my magazine dreams, Lorena, in this shot as a bodybuilder. What are your thoughts? I think Sundance has hit another fantastic, job in looking at his career right now at a point where, it's at that moment where he's just kind of exploding onto the screen in more ways than one. What are your thoughts about this as well?
Well, first of all, that picture on the left was the one that I was paying attention to. As soon as you brought up the brought the article, I mean, how can you not? Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous physique, especially given his role as a bodybuilder in that particular movie. Sundance is known for getting a lot of Hollywood directors to go there to discover new talent, new films, new talent, and to get all that kind of buzz going on. I first heard about Jonathan Majors when I saw a movie on Netflix called The Harder They Fall. And his number one, that film is great. So definitely check it out. Idris Elba is in it as well. Jonathan Majors is in it. I think Regina Hall. No, 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 no. It's not Regina Hall. I'm blanking. I can't
It's
believe it.
okay. It's
Oh
okay.
my gosh, she directed oh my gosh, was it One Night in Miami?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She was in Friday. Why am I drawing a blank on her name?
Um, One Night in Miami, you said? One Night in
Yeah.
Miami? Okay.
Or you can just
One,
look up Friday.
it's too late.
It'll hit me later on. But anyway, The Harder They Fall is a great movie on Netflix. Very
Yes.
well done. His performance was amazing in that. So I didn't get to see Devotion, but this is definitely an up and coming actor. Thank you, John Ware Jr., Regina King. Whoo, I had a brain fart there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
um, but yeah, he is definitely one to watch. Definitely one to watch.
Certainly, I Creed was one of the films that I had picked as something that I was so looking forward to. The storyline alone was pulling me in, but of course, once again, who doesn't love this boxing films and seeing the amazing conditioning of this actor, where he has to kind of give it his all in order to make this believable, to make this a film that you're going to want to believe in. And
Mhm.
I was not expecting magazine dreams. This is really amazing. He doesn't play a troubled boxer in Creed. I think he's the one who has to deal with a friend who has troubles, but it certainly is an emotional performance. I think that this is really just maybe one of his very special moments. He's not an unknown actor, but this might be his breakout moment for a lot of things. He's in 3 or 4 major films,
Mhm.
from last year and then this year. Certainly a very interesting time for Jonathan Majors, but I do have to say that I really do appreciate seeing his conditioning here. Wow.
Oh yeah.
I really have to give him a lot of credit for this, for putting everything out like this. He's very exposed in this picture. There's not any cover up here. It's 100% his body that we are seeing here, and it is absolutely amazing. I can understand why he grabbed so much attention at Sundance this year with a physique and a performance like this. And it really does look like a dream come true from the lighting here, just this picture here. So this was another movie that I just couldn't not talk about because I couldn't take my eyes off this photo and the passion. It really is very passionate photo, Lorena, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to looking at a performance that is more than just acting. There's a lot of physical demand on a performance like that, with a lot of close ups, not a lot of margin for error here.
Mhm.
So excited that he's doing something like this for that bodybuilding community. Now, Lorena, there's another story that I had difficulty. I had to change the title of tonight's show a few times because
Hmm.
Sundance just really, it just was so exciting this year with everything that was offered and all the different shows. But there's one movie in particular that had really been getting a lot of chatter for a number of different reasons. And it has to do with the idea of bringing back the erotic thriller. And it's been a while since we've had anything that really kind of fills that genre area. I
Mhm.
don't know, or I always wondered whether we were getting anything back like that because things have been kind of sterile. We haven't been seeing, we needed somebody to kind of bring sexy back, if you will. And this particular film called Fair Play hasn't just brought sexy back. It grabbed a lot of attention when it premiered Friday night at Sundance. And the story, which is just unbelievable. Here you can see two of the stars here. Phoebe, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong, Dynevor, and Alden Einrich, who played in Solo as Han Solo, I believe, are in this photo. And
Mhm.
to be honest with you, people were talking about the film. The film
Mhm.
has to do with a very kind of interesting relationship between these two characters. The characters are competing against one another, and it's set in New York. And I guess it's the high stakes financial kind of thing at a firm. And it opens up with one of maybe the most scandalous scenes, or at least one of the most controversial ones, Lorena, when we see a couple who want to get intimate, but they're getting intimate in a way that usually you don't see on screen. And it's very kind of hard to even describe what's happening, but it involves kind of this first encounter and a biological reality of women where after they have this sexual encounter, it looks like somebody committed murder in the room. And that's all I'm going to say in the description of it. Although they kind of allude and mention that it is during a very specific time in this woman's month. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But Lorena, my goodness, did we ever think we would see a film that would grab so much attention? And on top of all of this, Lorena, it's gotten so much buzz, it's gotten so much attention that different firms were bidding for it. Netflix ended up closing the deal. They paid $20 million for this. Lorena, would you have ever imagined that Netflix would be grabbing one of the most talked about films at Sundance and beating out other companies in order to get something like this? What are your thoughts about this, Lorena?
It doesn't surprise me that Netflix would have done that. I mean, let's think, like, say, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, all you would hear about are the big Hollywood studios snapping things up at Sundance because that's pretty much what they do. Sundance, they basically go shopping with what films they want to snap up. Netflix has become a heavy hitter in their particular industry. Netflix, Amazon, not so much, but Netflix is notorious for it now. So it doesn't surprise me that they snapped this up as quickly as they did.
Yeah, and something according to the reports, they were saying that the article, it says there was at least 7 offers, including Netflix, Searchlight, and Neon. Neon, I wouldn't have been surprised if they pushed something like this because this feels like something Neon might want to push forward. So it is very interesting looking at
Mhm.
this relationship between these two, and they're almost kind of comparing it. I guess it's either to Fatal Attraction or Basic Instinct style of
Uh-huh.
intensity. And I haven't heard those words thrown around in ages. I'm really curious. I really wish I had access to go ahead and just watch this film because it just sounds so amazing, to kind of see this. And it says the film is the first to come out between the association between MRC and T-Rain's Rain Johnson and Ram Bergman,
Mhm.
designed to hatch vehicles with emerging talent. What a rousing start with a drama that launches a new filmmaking voice in writer-director Chloe Dumont, making her feature directing debut after directing episodes of Billions, Suits, and Ballers. Now, Ballers was one of my favorite shows. I believe it was HBO, Lorena, and it starred
Mhm.
The Rock, and he was a talent agent. You and I have talked about that show because we love Arliss. And I had said,
Yes.
it kind of reminds me of Arliss,
I remember
like this.
Arliss.
And Arliss was cool, but The Rock was like he was ultra cool in that show where he had to kind of
Mhm.
like make sure that these guys showed up on time to different things. And it was just absolutely one of the most enjoyable shows I've ever watched. So, I think that The Rock kind of shined in Ballers. And here it says T Street Partners are also coming off The Glass Onion, the Knives Out sequel that is also one of the bright spots of the fall movie season. Certainly, yes, those films are making a splash there, and you can see the stars here in Fair Play. And we know those, you and I are working professionals, so we know those screens very well, those
Mhm.
monitors. We certainly have seen
Oh, yeah.
in our day. And usually
Mhm.
there's multiple monitors with multiple things on them, and you've got to keep track of that. And it's a 24-hour thing, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, but here they're talking about it's an intense ride down a slippery slope as a young couple descends into relationship hell. Well, it's certainly not something that's going to leave you unsatisfied. I think if they can describe it this way, if they can go ahead and say that this film is going to bring you down the realities of what might not be the best relationship, but will be something entertaining to watch, I can understand why anybody would want this. And it says it's a thriving New York couple that can't get enough of each other. When a coveted promotion at a cutthroat financial firm arises, supportive exchanges between the lovers begin to sour into something more sinister. As the power
Mm.
dynamics irrevocably shift in their relationship, Luke and Emily must face the true price of success and the unnerving limits of ambition. Ouch! Ouch! Oh my gosh, what is going to happen with this? It's amazing how they have described this. And I think we're going to be in for a treat, Lorena, when Netflix debuts this year. This is going to be one of those films that gets very high ratings.
Mm.
I think it's going to be just unbelievable what we see in this performance. And it's been a long time coming because we do need to see more mature cinema as going forward. And I think Sundance is delivering here again, Lorena. I can't wait for Netflix to give us the date when this comes out, because I'm going to be waiting with bated breath for Fair Play to appear their debut night on Netflix. This one's going to be incredible, and certainly worth it for Netflix to invest in something like this. Now, there's even more going on. But Lorena, this is also, I have to tell you, if you and I had gone to Sundance this year, we probably would have lost our minds because Momoa is there this year.
Oh, yeah. 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 I would have. We would have.
Jason Momoa was at Sundance this year. And of course, you know, he's turning out to be somebody who is incredibly devoted to conserving the oceans. And he is an Aquaman in more ways than one. I think that what's really interesting about his devotion, though, to the ocean is the intense emotion he has for this.
Hmm.
And, you know, he's just amazing. He mentions how he knew that he was going to make this commitment, and I think he decided that he wasn't going to use plastics.
Mhm.
He decided that he was going to follow a certain lifestyle and make sacrifices, and that's great. I think he's setting a good example. And so what he's involved in this time, and let me see if I can pull this up, guys, has to do with something called Deep Rising. And Deep Rising is the film that he is involved in. It's a documentary, and it deals with, unfortunately, mining in the ocean, or deep mining in the ocean. If
Mhm.
I immediately think about things like The Abyss, or, you know, a lot of those science fiction movies that we've enjoyed, seeing those vessels under the ocean and all that kind of cool stuff. Let me see if I can
Mhm.
pull this up here. My computer is not cooperating tonight. But, you know, I was just so touched by what he's doing. And I think it's making a difference. I think you don't always get a chance to do something as cool as this. Here it says Jason Momoa on Deep Rising Doc's impact, a dad's duty to protect the environment, and more Aquaman Sundance studio reports. And there you can see a
Hmm.
picture of Momoa there with the people who are doing it, the film Deep Rising here. It is a video. And of course, it debuted there. And here it says, I knew what was going on with deep sea mining, but some of the things in this film, and this is Jason Momoa's comments here,
Mhm.
some of the things in this film opened up. We were doing the VO for it, and it's the first time, the voiceovers for it, and it's the first time I've really gotten emotional, crying when I was doing it, said Jason Momoa of his work
Wow.
Rising documentary. And you know, this does not surprise me about Jason Momoa. I think he's an incredibly emotional person who cares about the environment. I think it's 100% something he's dedicated to. He says, "I'm a dad. I care about the next generation, and we're destroying it." And it says the Agua man. It's supposed to say Aqua, but Aqua man, it does say Agua, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Added
yeah. Y'all didn't proof this copy, but
Yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
okay. It's okay.
Right.
Star added of the environment, destruction of the earth is apparent. Yes. And in the studio, they detailed their desire to see the festival provide a spotlight. Now, the first thing that I started to think about, Lorena, was James Cameron for some reason. And the reason why is because of how he's an explorer. And I'm not going to say he's overly into environmentalism, but he's certainly not, outside of it. And he
Mhm.
does these things. He's kind of involved in these projects that are related to what he's doing. I could see Momoa kind of maybe not collaborating with Cameron, but carving out his own niche when it comes to the environment and the ocean. There's certainly enough room for everybody in that big ocean. What do you think, Lorena? Do you think this might be something you were talking about Momoa's show? I can't remember the name the station is on, but he was doing Climb, and
Yes, that's on,
you were
I think was it HBO Max? I think it was HBO Max.
Yeah, and so is Momoa heading in the direction maybe more kind of an explorer and maybe environmentalist in the way that Cameron might be, kind of opening up new areas where his career might go? What do you think, Lorena?
It's possible. It's possible. There's a lot of other celebrities where, or actors, as their career has evolved, they have like their passion projects. I call it the Save the Whales projects, that they'll get into. So I do know Momoa was actually in this commercial. I think it was last year or so, was for like the ball aluminum cups. So he's like, yeah, we want to try to replace the red solo cup with with the aluminum cup. So it was very cool. It's a cool commercial. So yeah, this could be a new direction for him. He seems very invested in it. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes with it.
Absolutely, Lorena. He is committed to this. He's done steps that we see. It certainly is a dedication here. And
Hmm.
here he talks about fresh off of meetings at Warner Brothers Discovery with the likes of CEO David Zaslav and DC Universe bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran. And excited
Hmm.
Momoa also had some Aquaman. Here they did use the letter Q now.
Yeah.
Aquaman news to share, as well as his future with the franchise and more. He says, quote, "I'll always be Aquaman, and there's a lot of evolution for that. So I'm not going anywhere, and it's very exciting." What do you think
Mm.
about that comment, Lorena? It's been such a emotional roller coaster over this past few months. I sure hope this is true. What do you think?
Like, with respect to his future, with him being Aquaman, I hope they stick with him. I really do. I mean, I'm still, and we both are still gutted about, Henry Cavill being out. I certainly do hope they keep him as Aquaman. So we shall see.
Something what's really interesting about this, and I know that, a lot of times they talk about recasting and doing other things, but I just don't really even picture anybody else doing this except for maybe the only other person I know who did play Aquaman. I don't know whether it was live action, but it might have been an animated. And of course, that's the gentleman from the show that we like, Reacher. Possibly he could play that role, but it's not
True.
easy to cast. And I think that his heart is in this, and I think it's the role has become more than just a Marvel character for him. I think that Momoa has taken this on in a different way. It's been a different dedication for him, a different challenge, and it's certainly something that keeps promoting the film. I just hope it works out, and regardless of what happens with Aquaman, let's say, although we know the film is coming up and we know every lady in the land and anyone who likes Jason Momoa will go and see it. I just hope that this continues this kind of positive message. He wants to make a change in this deep ocean mining thing,
Hmm.
drilling and everything. I sure hope it does make the impact he's hoping for. So there is that. Now, you and I were also talking about other shows that we love. And, I guess we knew that the writing was on the wall with this one. Um, I have watched this show since season two, I would say. And I hadn't even known about it because the show was primarily on, I think it was on, yeah, it was on YouTube at first.
YouTube Red, yes.
Yeah, it was on YouTube. YouTube was making an effort to kind of become a broadcaster, if you will. And I think the idea behind becoming a broadcaster was a good idea. They didn't do what they could have done with it, but that's okay. And of course, what I'm referring to, guys, is Cobra Kai. Um, Lorena, I can't say enough about Cobra Kai. Those first two seasons were on YouTube Red, as you mentioned, and I didn't even know it was there. I think they had a poor marketing campaign,
Mhm.
but then it shifted to another, I guess, Netflix or whomever.
Netflix,
Yeah, and it
yes.
had kind of a very odd way that it went from one to the other. And I thought, gee, does this mean that it's canceled? Because you know how sometimes what used to happen with network TV is
Mhm.
that once it shifted, sometimes it wouldn't necessarily go on with the same actors, but they managed to keep everything together, Lorena, with what an incredible ride this show has had. Everything from the pretty much almost all the original actors coming back, making an appearance at some point. This really was kind of like a nostalgia overload in a good way. And I'm not saying every single episode was perfect, but gee, Lorena, no one could mistake this Cobra Kai as anything else other than the Karate Kid reboot, a successful reboot, something that we've all enjoyed, something that we've talked about different times. And of course, the news is that it's renewed for its sixth and final season. No surprise there. Lorena, did you watch Cobra Kai? And what were your thoughts about the show over the past 5 years or so, or five seasons?
Well, let's see. I'll back up a little bit because when people were talking about Cobra Kai, I'm like, why should I see that? I already saw the Karate Kid 1 and 2. We do not talk about 3. Already seen it. I'm like, why? Not interested in it. And people are like, no, you got to check it out. You got to check it out. You got to check it out. So I got YouTube Red, like a free, I think like a free trial, and binged the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai and got hooked. Oh my God. I couldn't wait for more. Then it came on Netflix. I'm watching it every single season it comes out. I think 5th season, I lucked on like an invitation to actually see the first episode. They actually did it. I think it was through a private link. I think it was through the Hollywood Reporter or something like that. So we got to actually see the premiere before it aired. So they were asking us, please don't spoil it. I was just like, I can't spoil it for you guys. It's so good. I mean, I am constantly amazed at how good the show is. Cannot believe that it has gotten us to buy into Daniel LaRusso being the bad guy and Johnny being a good guy. I mean, it's the writing is just insanely good. Hayden Schlossberg did an amazing job of writing something new that doesn't disrespect the lore that it's based on. And it's absolutely fabulous. I can't wait for the 6th season. I'm kind of sad it's going to be the final season, but I'm okay with that because I don't want this show to jump the shark. Every season they have been outdoing themselves. It's just like what's going to happen next. So in a way I'm kind of ready. I'm ready for it to end, but in a good way, ready for it to end. It's fabulous. I can't say enough about how good the show is. Positive depiction of men and young boys and young women, especially with respect to self-defense, learning from your mistakes no matter how old you are, because the adults are still screwing up in this show. And it's perfectly okay. Everybody learns from the last season. Who would have thought we were going to see Chosen again?
Yeah, exactly. Lorena, it is very interesting because we have seen so many reboots over the last 5 to 6 years. And we've had so many disappointments in these reboots. And, Cobra Kai, they were lucky enough to get a lot of the original cast, as I said. But you made a good point. I had no idea that I would kind of be rooting for Johnny this time around, Lorena. Things have really changed. They made a point of showing a realistic bunch of grown-up fighters in this. And not only them as adults, but their children who kind of get involved in this story, which is absolutely spectacular. We certainly are seeing something that we've been curious about as to how everybody turned out, because, the Karate Kid had those, as you said, many versions, or let's say sequels of the movie, some good, some not good. But this was quality television. It had, great stories. There was this great storyline between Johnny and this child who lives in the same apartment.
Yeah, Miguel.
And then, of course, the other storyline where Johnny's son is close friends, with essentially would be his enemy. I think that was something that was very mature to show, but it also kept it close to home, because it's a tight circle, even though they are kind of resisting the idea that they are close, that they are frenemies. That's how I would put it. They are frenemies. Even though they're resisting this, it's clear that they are frenemies. I mean, they even brought back the girl from the original story, and her name escapes me, but could you imagine? It was kind of a dream, because if you could go back to high school and find out where everybody from your high school is right now and what they're doing, what would life be like? And this might be a very good example of what it might be like. This might be it, Lorena. Everybody's in a different spot, a different place in their lives. And Cobra Kai has gone ahead and done this, bringing back the worst and the best of everything. But it did not fail when it came to being a reboot. And, the other thing that it reminds me of, although Stranger Things is not a reboot, it's kind of this, retro show that after a certain number of years, that it's been on, it didn't have a great, I think, season 3, but then it came back. But it's another show that after a certain number of seasons, I don't think it would be successful if they continue the show and keep going. I think it's run its course. And, we're seeing a lot of situations. I guess some people might have said The Walking Dead probably could have been ended after, a few seasons.
Went on way too long.
Yeah, it did go on way too long. But, it was absolutely fascinating what they've been able to accomplish with Cobra Kai. And of course, as I said, they lucked out with being able to get a lot of the cast members who are still alive, who still want to be involved in the project, and they still have chemistry on film. Now, you and I featured one of the characters, or one of the stars on the show on Toxic Male Appreciation, I believe. But honestly, Lorena, I certainly wasn't expecting to see the response, not just from our, let's say, people who are nostalgic and from our generation, let's say, but from even younger generations like Cobra Kai. And, the idea that I had made a comment that I bet you that this particular show is encouraging young kids to go ahead and join a dojo, start to think about martial arts. What are the benefits of martial arts? The impact of the show is more than just the nostalgia, so to speak. A lot of it has to do with these relationships. We talked about bullying. We talked about what it means to build relationships. And you mentioned positive male role models. Certainly that was in it as well. These characters, these children that have to make decisions about their lives. It got pretty serious in some of the cases where, maybe the one that stood out the most to me was at the high school, where the kids kind of like had this brawl in high school.
Oh, that was insane.
It was insane. And something, it was almost, it got out of control. And at no point did they ever justify what happened was okay. And I think it was very interesting that their approach to this, that there were repercussions, Lorena. There were repercussions to what the kids were going to end up having to deal with because of what had happened at the school. And so here, you can see one of I think this is when he fell off of the balcony and they're visiting him in the hospital. And then, of course, the dojo guys who were not nice to Johnny. Yes, kind of coming in and really just bothering them, so to speak. That never went away. And then we also kind of saw some breakout stars who I think they needed the dojo in their lives. They needed this. And that's something else too that I thought was very interesting because, in the way that the world has been over the last 10 years or so, I don't know how encouraged people are to put their children into martial arts these days. I don't even know whether this is considered woke. I mean, or like if you do this, it's like you're not woke. It means that you're anti woke or whatever. I don't know whether people are saying it's too violent. That's what I'm really trying to say. I don't know whether there's a contingency of people who feel it is too violent, who feel, it's just such a strange world these days that I don't
Mhm.
even know where this stands. But what I can say is that we got to see other personalities of children who were going through things that in the 80s, nobody wanted to talk about a lot of this stuff. I remember when I first saw one of the first films where Johnny gets beat up by his sensei, and I remember
Mhm.
how horrible that was. But I think nobody really wanted to talk about the fact that he was getting beat up by his sensei because that's absolutely scandalous. Like it's completely unacceptable that happened. But they chose to show it in the film. It was the 1980s or the 90s, and
Mhm.
the reaction today would have been quite different, I think, to that sort of reaction. I think that if it were something from today, people would be quite shocked, but it was something that happened in the story, and they chose to focus on that to make a point. But the relationship, as I said, between the frenemies grows, and the children also now are trying to decide whether or not this lucky girl who gets to go out with both guys. But I'm not even going to get into that. But the point is that she picks up, the torch and decides to go into martial arts, and they create a new dojo. I think it was a very interesting thing because it had almost seemed like both men had stepped away from the martial arts for a while, but it was such an important part of their lives growing up, Lorena. Going back to something that had grounded them and brought them together, no matter what. I just think it was very clever to kind of look at this because sometimes you do have to step away. Life gets in the way, and you have to step away from this. Having Johnny to constantly have to see these car commercials on TV, the billboards, of him, and it was like almost haunting him, almost kind of telling everybody that, their lives were going to kind of intersect again.
Mhm.
But another very interesting part too is the relationships that were built through the years, where they kind of did this payoff where I can't remember. Why can't I remember this guy's name? He goes back to Japan, and the little girl that he saved happens to be the person who's going to make the deal to save his business.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
I thought that, those things, those relationships where they decided to use that as a vehicle to show you
Mhm.
the importance of, sacrifice, the importance of putting yourself in danger, putting somebody else first, was something that they didn't have to do in a television series. But Lorena, they thought about this, and you and I have been talking and looking at different series, wondering why weren't they more careful with certain things? Why didn't they utilize opportunities like that in a lot of series that we've seen come back? I have to say that this writing team, the organization of it, just even kind of looking at this dojo where it's not glitzy, it's a basic dojo, and you can understand walking in there. Yes, sensei, like you can walk in there and understand what the dynamics are going on. It doesn't need anything more than the basics. I think maybe they hit on something in that sense where this was just something that we needed to be in its raw natural form, and that's what we got. It's 30 or 40 years later, but the inherent qualities of the show and the message has not changed. What do you think? I mean, kind of looking at the, these sprayed on or, painted on wall, pictures on the wall or words on the wall for encouragement. The dojo is not too spectacular, but it sends a message of discipline, respect, meditation. What do you think about them maintaining that in the show, as well as being very careful picking and choosing on where to show payoffs in the story so far?
I think what it does is when they go with this look, it pays respect to the original material. Walking in and you walk in and you see that the Cobra Kai dojo does not look that much different from when it did before. And it just has this grounding effect that I see with it. So even though it's later, some principles are still the same. And for those of us who remember the movies, we get those nostalgic feels like, okay, they know what they're doing. For those who are like completely new to watching this, it's kind of like, well, what happened? What happened back then? So it's like this interesting pull effect, I would say, that again, it's full of nostalgia. It's got that retro, feel to it. And it makes it feel like nothing has really changed. Um, in a way. It's not glitzy over the top. I'm gonna hit you with so many, special effects, which I think is actually a good thing. The Karate Kid movies weren't reliant on special effects. It was reliant a lot on martial arts and the lessons learned throughout those martial arts. So which is even in contrast to the new dojo that Terry Silver puts together. It doesn't feel right when you see it. It's kind of just like, I don't think you need to have all this equipment and stuff that's there.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and they kind of address it or brush on it a little bit. I guess when one of the elders comes from Japan and he talks about sharing a special technique, and it's almost as if they were showing that this technique was more valuable than any other kind of weapon or anything like that. But above all, what I have noticed is that there is the idea of trying to teach discipline, and these are young men who and women who are very, very strong. I think they're setting a really good example of how to control yourself in situations. And the meditation part is equally as important, because it's that meditation part where when you have you're at the heat of the moment and you have to make these decisions. These, of course, pictures of the cats. When you have to make these
Mhm,
decisions about whether you're going to do anything, it's really important to go ahead and kind of find yourself at a point where you're going to say, hey, I'm going to hold off on doing something. And we do see that time and time again in the story, Lorena. We saw some really touching moments where many of the children and the adults kind of hold back. And I think that also is very interesting to see that, especially when sometimes they may be at an advantage. And, they talk about the idea of almost fair play, if you will. I'm kind of finishing up the episode today talking about fair play from Netflix and now fair play in Cobra Kai, where the idea of wanting things to be fair. When that young girl finds out that she won because everything was rigged, it's
mhm,
devastating to her. This was one of the worst. This is the happiest moment of her life. Turns out to be one of the most upsetting moments of her life. And it's
mhm.
being able to capture moments like that where she realized it wasn't fair play. My goodness, it is going to have an effect on you, regardless of sides, regardless of situation. She realized that, this was not a fair situation. How did I get into this? And I think that
Exactly.
that was a growing moment, obviously, not just for the show, but for character development. And so I think that by ending it in season 6, where I imagine these kids are going to graduate or something and go on to whatever it is they're going to do, certainly
Mhm,
is setting up the show for one of the most memorable reboots, I think, in history. I can't think of another one that was this successful, that was this genuine. Nobody was trying hard. It was just really these characters that came through as 100% authentic. It was hard work
mhm.
to get it here. It was hard work to build
Oh,
that
yeah.
feeling back. And, I think they accomplished it in so many ways, to a point where, we were all so pleased with it. And I wonder what the next step might be. I could see a movie in 5 years or 10 years or something like that. But like Stranger Things, before, as you said, or someone said, before it jumps the shark, it does need
Mhm.
to come to its final closing point. And, I kind of am curious as to what they're going to do in season 6. I hope we do get some kind of closure, Lorraine. how could they wrap this up? It's something to think about and something I'm sure you and I are going to cover in a later episode, but it is something to think about. How do they wrap up Stranger Things? Those kids are way past high school age now,
Mhm.
right? And maybe the same
Exactly.
for Cobra Kai, which I kind of feel like they run hand in hand, although Stranger Things was not a reboot. But I do find it very interesting that it's clear to me that maybe the next season will be their final, if they haven't already announced it, but needs to be. So I have to congratulate the entire cast and production of Cobra Kai. We knew it was coming, but it's actually it's not
Yeah.
bitter. It's sweet. It's a sweet ending, I think, for their season will end, and it will be something that we're going to cherish, and we're going to rewatch those episodes, I think.
Oh, yeah,
Going forward.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that is the situation for Cobra Kai. Lorena, oh my gosh. What a day. And I do want to ask, where can people find you?
Well, folks, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, and of course, you can find me here on YouTube during various live streams and videos, sometimes by myself, a lot of times with here of Positive Fandom and other special guests.
Absolutely, everybody. If you liked today's show, please like and subscribe to Lorena Creole's channel. You can see the link here in the chat. And of course, it's in the description of the video as well. And guys, you can always find me here on the Burn Network. Um, but also, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Positive Fandom, where on Friday, I'm going to be reviewing part 2 of Napoleon and Josephine, a love story with Darth Plato, PGS member. But guys, you can also find me on Lorena Creole's channel as well for our show, Toxic Male Appreciation.
Mhm.
Thursdays on her Twitch channel, as well as her regular channel for watch parties as well. And the 1/6 Scale Man Network for either Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. Guys, it's such a pleasure to see you all tonight. I want to thank Lorena for always being here. And it's just always so much fun to do this show with you, Lorena. I look forward to it every week. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Um,
you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
it's a pleasure. And Tom Jr. Jackson, we are all goof people, Tom Jr. Jackson. And check out his channel as well, my collaborator, always helping me out, a great friend. And for all of you out there, no matter where you are in the galaxy, please always remember to be kind. Take care, everybody. Bye.